and every story can change the world.
Together we are Global Speakers Talk.
World, and thank you for joining us today. I'm going to really focus a little bit more on emotional intelligence for women, because I think women, through social conditioning and the way we're brought up, are really good at this. And I want to point out why and encourage you to use your emotional intelligence even more. Women already use emotional intelligence every day. We understand unspoken concerns, we create inclusive spaces, we create relationships and collaborations, and we navigate conflict with diplomacy, and we build trust. And yet those same skills are often dismissed, undervalued, or used against us sometimes. But when we use emotional intelligence intentionally, it becomes influence, it becomes clarity, it becomes power. So basically, emotional intelligence simply means that you can recognize your emotions, you can understand them, manage them, and help others to do the same in a supportive way. And I hear from almost every woman I coach, I'm the emotional support system at work and at home, and no one sees that as leadership. So let's name a few of the real problems that women face. We're interrupted more. We're expected to manage emotions around us without any recognition. We often lead without a title, but carry the responsibility. We are praised for empathy, but it can burn us out. Like that, I'm sorry you're having a bad day. What can I do to help? When I've had a bad day too. So today I want to show how emotional intelligence isn't a soft skill, as it was often referred to in the earlier days of leadership. It's a leadership advantage. And I'm going to do that by highlighting a few of the key characteristics of emotional intelligence, which many of the speakers have already discussed, but I'm going to give it the perspective from a women's point of view. So basically, self-awareness is knowing what's going on inside you. It's noticing when that inner critic gets too loud, when you say yes, even though your whole body is saying no, or guilt arises when you set a boundary, or you silence yourself to make others feel more comfortable. It's the moment where you notice your feelings instead of getting swept away with them. I used to tell my daughter when I would get frustrated sometimes when she was little, Mommy needs time out. I didn't realize it at the time, but what I was doing was separating myself from the emotion so that I could understand it and rather than act from it. And you can't change what you can't see. So self-awareness to me is the step one of any emotional intelligence, because everything else builds on it. That kind of leads us into self-regulation, which some of the other speakers have talked about. And self-regulation is really choosing your response. It's the shift from reacting to responding with thoughtful intention. Example, someone interrupts you in a meeting or repeats your idea and claims it is their own. Instead of shutting down or getting angry, you take a breath and you say something like, well, sometimes I say, thanks for recognizing my genius, but that's more in my inner voice than my outer voice. But I might say something like, thanks for building on my earlier point. That's not sarcastic, it's not passive, it's just claiming your space. And I want to tell a quick story about when I worked in Texas politics, and I was presenting to a group of male legislators about women's health care. My nerves, my anxiety were off the charts. My self-awareness helped me notice that anxiety. My self-regulation helped me choose how I showed up anyway. And I stood there, nervous, trying not to show that I was shaking, and remembered something that the governor of Texas had told me. She was Ann Richards, and she was a woman leader among a sea of men. And she said, just remember, when you look at them, they put on their pants one leg at a time, just like everybody else. That calmed me. So self-awareness is the insight. Self-regulation is the action. You know what you feel, and you decide what to do with it. The other thing I wanted to talk about is empathy, because once again, women are kind of conditioned to be empathetic. But empathy is really understanding others without absorbing them. And what do I mean by that? Women are really great at listening to learn, recognizing unspoken emotions, meeting people where they are, standing beside someone during hard moments. But what's the challenge? We often take on those emotions as responsibilities for others. We become that emotional support system for everybody. We absorb emotions that aren't ours. We get pulled into people pleasing and fixing instead of empowering. So what I tell women is that we have to remember to care without carrying. And what does that look like? Okay, so when somebody is in a crisis, I try and catch myself into slipping into that fixer mode because I really love fixing other people or fixing their problems. But instead, I now have learned to ask, what support do you think you need? So that kind of focuses it back on them and makes them think about their issue. And when I worked in the UN, I still work in the UN, but we have something we live by, some words we live by. And that is, don't tell me what you think I need. Let me tell you what I need. And those are so important, to let them tell you what they need instead of imagining. We also need to recognize emotional overload and set boundaries so we don't burn out, because we need to be present, but we don't need to be drained. And that's where empathy becomes a leadership skill rather than emotional labor. And empathy often melds into social awareness because they use a lot of the same characteristics. And social awareness it's an interpersonal intelligence. It's the part that lets you read the dynamics and shape conversations. As other people have said, reading the room. And I think women are usually very well attuned to reading the room and noticing the undercurrents, pausing to reset the energy, seeing who's withdrawing and who's dominating, and adjusting what's going on in the room so that all voices are heard. We navigate conflict diplomatically. I'm sure you've been called in to mitigate a family dispute or an argument in the household or at work. And we're good at moving conversations towards solutions. So when you use your what I call EQ, emotional intelligence, in this way, you shape conversations, you shape outcomes without needing a title. This is presence, this is influence, and this is leadership. So to put it all together, it's all about knowing yourself and leading yourself. When you do that, you can understand others. You can help them navigate their emotions. You can use these emotions to inspire. You can use these emotions to get people to unite around a common goal. And that's basically what leadership is. Leadership isn't sitting in an office like the old curmudgeon barking out orders. That's not leadership anymore. Forbes, Harvard Business Review, all the studies show that the most important characteristic of leadership nowadays is emotional intelligence. Kinsey did a study of, I think, over 1,000 different HR people around the world, and they identified that also. And they said that women scored way higher on the emotional intelligence scale than men. Sorry, men, but that's the study. I'm just sharing the information. So knowing that these are powerful skills and learning to use them, or not use them because we have them. We just need to be more aware of them, and we need to channel them more often and be cognizant that these are leadership skills. They're not just something we do. So these are powerful skills, but the transformation lies in using them consistently, especially in high stakes moments, like that moment when I was talking to those legislators. Being able to really channel my self-awareness and my self-regulation to still present effectively was essential to me getting my job done. But this takes practice, and sometimes it takes a buddy for reflection, for accountability, to help us see in ourselves what triggers we have, what sets us off, and reining it in so that we can lead with more impact. And that's the work I do with women every day. I help them turn these insights into influence, confidence, boundaries, and clarity, so they can lead from what I call their zone of greatest influence. That's the level of leadership where you stop reacting to the world around you and start intentionally shaping it. It's a place within you where your values, your strengths, and your purpose meet. It's where your leadership becomes undeniable. So if anything here resonated with you and you're ready to explore what your next level of leadership could look like, I'd love to continue the conversation. Thank you so much for being here today, taking time out of your day or your evening or your morning. And we really depend on our listeners. So thank you, listeners. And thank you, JB. And thank you, Anshu, for putting this together.
Our pleasure, Kathy. It's amazing what you've been able to accomplish in raising the awareness for what women have gone through. It's amazing when you really think about how many, I guess, historically, how women have been taken advantage of. And what's really important to me, especially after our first conversation, was I've learned so much about myself, connecting with that part of who I am, simply because of the message that you've delivered. So I want to thank you from myself, because I think that helps me work with women better and raise them up and change how men look at things too. So again, thank you very much. And I really, really encourage everybody to take advantage of what Kathy's offer is.
Together we are Global Speakers Talk.